Hello, and welcome to another episode of Survivor Social, the Survivor podcast where we discuss Survivor through the lens of the social elements of the game. My name is David, and I am joined by two icons this week. I am joined by Tegwyth, as always, but we got a special guest with us this week. It is Phil, Survivor Social royalty, Survivor Now royalty. How are you, Phil?
I'm doing fantastic. I am far from royalty. I'm honored to be on this podcast, so thank you for letting me join. This is awesome.
We're so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. Let's get into it.
So I got a bone to pick with you before we start, Phil, because we had a conversation recently off the pod, and you mentioned to me that you're not a big pre-HD season of Survivor fan. So I've got to put you in the hot seat right now. What is your favorite pre-HD Survivor season? So before Gabon.
Okay, so first of all, I want everyone to know, all the listeners to know, that this was sprung upon me. This is not planned at all. There was not some secret text from David saying, hey, by the way, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is completely organic here. Look, David is a truther. I definitely sort of, I prefer the HD seasons. But look, there was some gold beforehand. If I had to pick one season that I am more partial towards, I'd say Amazon. But even so, I think a big part of that is because I'm a huge fan of Rob Sesternino. And so it all started there. So I'd have to go with Amazon. Now, if I'm allowed to put you on the spot here, he sent me his sort of Survivor rankings. And at the bottom of his list was Ghost Island. And I want you to tell me why.
Yeah, Survivor Ghost Island just does not do it for me. There's so many people that are just, sort of useless to like the overall story of Survivor as a whole. And I'm not saying these aren't interesting people with good backgrounds who probably are very kind, wonderful, benevolent people in their own right. But as TV characters, I really was not enamored with most of them. I also sort of felt like the Ghost Island gimmick was pretty weak. We got some great characters out of it, a few stars, but nothing for me that really popped.
I can definitely agree with you on the Ghost Island gimmick. It was very gimmicky. So
I kind of liked it, not gonna lie. I'm gonna be the contrarian here. I don't think it was executed in the way that I wish it would have been executed, but I feel like the idea was there. Like I think it kind of could have been fun, but I like that kind of like silly, campy. It's not really campy, but like kind of a thing that's like, there. So I liked it, but maybe it could have been done like slightly better. I don't know.
Yeah, and thank you, Tegwyth. Justice for Ghost Island. I always say that it's the only season that has ever had a true tie. And for me, that was so huge. I can remember it to this day, watching it and being like, wait, what? Jeff is bringing out the votes right now? What's going on? And I think that it'll always sort of be, I told him, sort of lower mid for me, but alas.
I respect it. It deserves a little bit more respect on its name, and maybe it calls for a rewatch, who knows, but I think it should probably still, stay Ghost Island, stay there, no revamps, no 2.0. That was good enough. But we're not here to talk about Ghost Island. That's true. We are here to talk about Wax Island, Wax Idol Island, all of the above, Beware Island, Brandon's Island, whatever we want to call this season. I guess that's something we should brainstorm too. If this had like a subtitle, like Survivor Gabon, Earth/Eden, whatever Survivor 45 would be. We can think about that. If you're watching, comment, please. We'd love to hear what you think it is. Super open to that. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to Survivor Now on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, all of the above, and Survivor Socialites, our personal podcast Instagram. Send us your questions at survivorsocialpod@gmail.com, or frankly, wherever you want to get a hold of us. And speaking of some questions, we received a few listener questions that we're going to answer before we dig into the episode. And the first one comes from Mariana, who asks, who are your favorite contestants from Survivor Nicaragua? Not a question I ask myself very often, I'll be honest. Thoughts?
I just want to say I have heard so much about Survivor Nicaragua in the last couple of days. I feel like I never think about it. But somebody I follow on TikTok is rewatching Nicaragua right now. And at a couple of the live events that I went to in the last couple of days, like 3 people said that it was like one of their favorite seasons. And I went, what? Like, I was so shocked. And the fact that this is one of the questions that was sent in, I think is so funny, because honestly, after not thinking about Nicaragua for you know, the last months, honestly. I feel like it's on my mind like all the time. So this is such a very well timed question. And this might be a lame answer, but I honestly love Judd. I mean, Fabio. I call him Judd. I don't know why. I don't ever call him Fabio. I have no idea why that's the case. I have no explanation. Maybe whatever. But I just love him as a winner. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think it's a really interesting win. I was shocked when I watched it. And I mean, also, like, you know, Brenda's great. And, you know, there's so many great characters, but it was one of those wins where I was genuinely shocked when it happened. Like when, similar to like when Bob won, like I was genuinely shocked when it happened. And I kind of love that feeling of just like, I was taken off guard. And I liked it. So yeah, that's who I'm going to go with.
Mr. Peeing in the pool in the middle of a challenge. Winner Fabio. Yeah.
Great name,
Got it.
Franchise. I think.
Phil.
Now look, I hardly ever think about Survivor Nicaragua, but when I do, I feel like I gotta pick Brenda. Brenda. She comes back for Fan First Favorites. I loved her appearance on there. I'm gonna go with Brenda. I honestly would hope that she would come back again. I don't know if Jeff will ever dive that deep in the cast pool to bring her back for returnee season, but I would love to see her again. I think that she's a great player.
I think so long as the Dawn stands don't, you know, cause a revolt if they find out that she's cast on a season, then I think that she'll probably, you know, could happen in the future. But both of those choices are great. They are entertaining characters, to say the least. And I think that my choice would probably be Marty, because I think he goes out with a bang and he makes some really dumb moves, but he tries and he really puts himself out there. And lies about beating a chess master at one point. Just little details about him where I'm like, I don't know what your thing is, but like I'm sort of entertained.
I would love to. This is kind of something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. This is kind of like a side question coming from me, myself, and I. I feel like the more I kind of delve into, like, the more I think about a season, I realize how much I appreciate the people who are really fun characters, and I still appreciate the really great game players. But I feel like the longer I've been watching Survivor and the more I'm into it, sometimes I even put like, yeah, maybe their game was really horrible, but I laughed a lot and I really loved watching them on the screen. How do you feel on like watching people, like when it comes to like the show, when it comes to gameplay versus like entertainment aspect of it?
I think that's a fantastic question, because there really is there are people that are such like they only care about the game bots. There are also people that only care about the characters. I'm definitely somewhere in the middle, but I definitely lean towards characters. If I can remember you, that's sort of my biggest call for if you were a good contestant to a certain extent. Do I remember good game players? Absolutely. But I also think that there are a bunch of contestants that are really not the best game players, but I remember them and they were memorable, and that means a lot to me. So I'm going to go with characters. What about you, David?
Yeah, I would 100% have to agree with you. I'd say I lean even more towards characters. I'd say like 85-15 even, which just sounds ridiculous. But think back to Shane Powers. What a crazy character and so memorable. Was his gameplay? Could you even say that he exhibited anything even close to gameplay? Probably not. But he was an incredibly entertaining character. That's how I feel about the other Judd, the OG Judd.
Love Judd. I love the Judds, honestly.
Yeah. And
cast
so,
more Judds.
More Judds on Survivor.
Yeah.
Judds versus, I don't even know. Judds versus Michelle's versus, I'm trying to think of the really common names. Ryan's. Yeah, I would watch that. Judd's winning.
Judd's winning.
Yeah. So I'd have to echo that, Phil. What about you, Tegwyth?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where I really am, I think, leaning more towards the character, which is so funny because I only started watching. I mean, a lot of people know about this about me already, but I started watching in 2018. And when I started watching in 2018, like I have a vivid memory of thinking that Courtney Yates was mean and I didn't like watching her on my screen. Like that is a wild opinion to have. And like the fact that like it's changed so much in such a short amount of time, like my opinions about Survivor, like she is, and I'm not saying that she's has bad gameplay. She doesn't, but I just like really love the people who make me laugh, like make me smile, and you know, maybe sometimes do some crazy things or maybe not, and are just like really funny and entertaining. So I definitely would have to go with the like, you know, character entertainment value. And it's not to say that I don't love the people who play amazing, very strategic games. It's just like, I feel like a lot of times people forget that Survivor is a TV show, and like it's there for entertainment. It's not just like, you know, let's go through the motions and do that. When that happens, it's not usually a great season. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like a nice balance, but I definitely love the entertainment.
Yeah, that was a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. And if we've got time for one more before we jump into the episode itself, Amanda Lynn asks, which cast do you think you'd fare best with in terms of winning? And I guess my question to tack onto this is, who are you swapping yourself in for?
And here's a follow-up question, just kind of a clarification. Are we playing with the knowledge that we currently have of Survivor, and then we're going back in time and playing that? Because the answer is Borneo, and I feel like that is the only correct answer. And I would replace myself with Kelly. Like I obviously wouldn't play the exact same, but like I feel like maybe that's too easy of an answer, but I feel like I would fare pretty well against the Borneo cast.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably, for the sake of the fun of it all, I'm probably not going to answer it that way. But if we are answering it that way, I want to be the Sue to your Kelly really badly, just so we can reenact the whole rats and snakes together.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, you know, and it's wild because I feel like we've already talked about this, but I think I have my answer, and it's Ghost Island. Because I think Ghost Island was full of so many sitting ducks, and I know that I am not that personality type, and so I'm sorry, buddy, but I'm gonna replace you, Wendell, and I'm gonna be Dom's number one, and I'm gonna hopefully win the game. I just, because you're right, I do think that was a big critique on Ghost Island, is that there was a bunch of contestants who sort of sat and watched two people run the game, and even when they knew it, they didn't really make the proper changes to sort of try to usurp that or make any sort of alterations to what was going on. And if I'm trying to win, I think that I would go to Ghost Island. I think if I wanted to hang out with some fun, cool people, crazy, kooky people, I'd pick Cagayan, because I think that is one of, I mean, y'all both know, that is my favorite season of all time, and I think it's full of characters. And I'd probably replace myself with Wu, even though I love Wu. I again, I think I want to seed myself next to the person who is bringing people to the end. So
great choices. I would love that. This answer is very easy for me, and it's 100% Guatemala, switching myself out for Rafe, dragging Stephanie to the end and not making the decision that he made, being a little bit more skeptical of Danny, even though she was sick and almost medevaced and they didn't show it, but cutting them loose at the end, going for the gold. And I also think Guatemala is a very interpersonal, relationship-driven season rather than a strategic season, and I think that I would be able to exploit that.
Tegwyth? I just want to say, on the Guatemala train, this is kind of a side note, but someone's backing out outside. Sorry about that. But I posted recently that Guatemala is in one of my favorite seasons of all time, and I didn't realize how many people disagree with that. Like, yeah. I love Guatemala, and people don't like it, and I was like, what? Are we watching the same thing? But it's interesting. People on the internet have opinions. That is the truth. If I give if I give like a real answer to this question and not just like a easy one, I feel like, and it's, I don't even know if I would think I would win it, right? Because Kim dominated, but I feel like I would really like to kind of play One World, and I think it's interesting because this is the first season watching Big Brother, and One World is essentially kind of like Big Brother on an island, not the same, right? Because there's still two tribes, but you still have the relationships that you kind of have in Big Brother where everyone's talking, everyone can kind of build relationships, all this stuff, right? And I feel like it would be a really interesting way to play Survivor, and one that I think I would fare really well in, because I always say that I feel like if I'm on a season with very small tribes, I'm doomed. Like if I'm ever on one with like a six person tribe, I don't think I would do as well. If I'm on like a tribe with at least 10 people, and One World, in theory, you still have tribes, right? But you have the most people that you can interact with, and where I feel like I could maybe make myself a smaller target, or maybe a bigger, I don't know what I would do, but I feel like there's more maneuverability in that. And I kind of think it'd be really interesting. I don't know if I could actually win it. But I do think I would really enjoy kind of playing in that format, which I think is a little weird. And I have no idea who I would replace myself with. I have no idea. Colton, maybe?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just swap yourself out for him.
Good choice.
Yeah. Maybe do everyone a favor, but I don't know if that's allowed, but I don't know. I feel like it'd be interesting to kind of play in that scenario.
In this thought experiment, all things are allowed. And that's a really interesting choice. You're right, because there's so many alliance building opportunities, even in the pre-merge. So yeah, I really like that. I like that perspective.
I just want to say, I want to ask you, David. I'm actually not positive about this, but if I'm not mistaken, Guatemala is the season with the least returnees. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
David, we want to see you time and time again. Why would you ever pick Guatemala?
Yeah.
Because, well, two reasons. One, I'm not in it for the fame, Phil. I'm in it for the $1 million. I'll fade into obscurity with my cash and, ride into the sunset on my steed made of money. And I honestly think that it's a shame that people from Guatemala haven't come back. I know Amy O'Hara was actually in the running for Heroes versus Villains, and I have to believe that Judd had, been in talks for coming back despite Jeff hating him. And I know Cindy and her twin sister Mindy were in strong consideration. I know everyone says they were up for Blood versus Water, but I believe they're in strong consideration for Blood versus Water. So it was possible, but I think they like to let Guatemala fade into obscurity due to seeing the side of Stephanie LaGrossa Kendrick that they wish did not exist. So truly, I'd be okay with that. I don't need to be a big Survivor name. Just give me the check.
There we go. I think it's a great answer.
Thank you.
I agree.
All right, so let's jump into this episode. I'm not even going to try and talk about the title because last time I talked about it and just made me roll my eyes. This title, I just don't even know what we're doing. So let's just jump back. So Lulu is back from Tribal talking about how sad they are that Hannah went. Sean refers to himself as a Lululemon. I don't know if that's some kind of like secret kind of branding deal that he's going to reveal after the season is over. Kind of love that, but most importantly, and what stuck out to me was Sabaya saying to Emily, it's really hard to get to know you because you're adamant about being someone who is unliked. What do we think about this?
I thought this was all very interesting gameplay. This kind of discussion feels way more overt than other discussions I feel like I've seen in the past. And maybe I'm just thinking like recency biased, but it was so open. Now, granted, everyone's kind of disdain, at least in the edit for Emily, was very open already, right? So it's not like that was kind of being hidden, and everything kind of came out at Tribal Council. So obviously it's going to be talked about, but it felt like very interesting, like seeing those social dynamics. But I do kind of get where Sabaya is coming from, because I feel like if you want to try to work with somebody, or you're trying to have a conversation with somebody, or whatever it is, and you just kind of run into a wall, or you feel like you're running into a wall, it can be incredibly difficult to continue feeling like you're the only one working in this situation, in the dynamic. I'm not saying that that's actually the case, but perception is reality. And if Sabaya thinks that that's happening, then in her mind it actually is. And so when you're trying to work with somebody or trying to have a conversation with somebody and you're not getting that back, and you're just like, it's just not working, then it is very difficult to get to know somebody. And it's maybe not the sense that she is someone who needs to be, or who's unliked or so unliked or whatever, but if you feel like you're getting nothing in return, then why continue to get to know somebody? Do you know what I mean? So I feel like it was very interesting. Loved that kind of conversation. Something that I feel like we might not have seen in a 90-minute or in a 60-minute episode. And just very classic Survivor. Phil, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I think that this was a really it was a really involved post-tribal for episode 2. I feel like so often early game, especially after the first boot, right? It's the first boot. Who usually leaves the first boot tribal feeling attacked for one, from Sabaya's perspective, feeling so on the outs from Emily's perspective. It's the start of the game. It's 3 days in. And so I thought that it was really fascinating to see that this conversation was happening in the second episode. That said, I also think what's interesting is, despite Emily being sort of on the outs, I think that she just holds so much power within her that it felt like a very balanced sort of back and forth. Something that I sort of always remember is the back and forth between Hai and Romeo I believe that was 42. And I felt like that there was a post-tribal that got kind of nasty. And I remember after that, it's just what it is. I felt so bad for Romeo because it did not feel like an even matchup. It felt like Hai was kind of slamming down on Romeo, and it felt very unbalanced. And I felt like, but in this discussion between Sabaya and Emily, I did not leave this feeling like, oh man, they were really bullying Emily here. Nor did I feel like, oh man, I feel so bad for Sabaya. It was just like, no, this had to be hashed out. And these are two people that don't really understand each other. And so I was really happy that we got to see it. To your point, Tegwyth, this would have been cut from a 60-minute episode. We would have never gotten to see it. And it was really worthwhile, in my opinion. And I also think, and I don't think that we're there yet, but I think it really goes to show that, you don't know what you don't know. Emily said something there where she said, I didn't know Sabaya was going to be so sensitive. And I think that that is so key, because I think that happens with me a lot too. I'm a big talker. I'm a very social guy. But I am a sensitive guy, deep down under. And I think people see me being so social, they think that they could say whatever to me. Oh, it's just going to roll off his back. He's a social guy. He's got a bunch of friends. No, I'm still going to be affected. I'm a human. And we saw that happen between Emily and Sabaya. But David, please tell me what you think.
Yeah, I completely agree that we needed to see this, and this was a valuable interaction. However, I do think that there is still an imbalance of power in the sense that, Emily knows that she's on the bottom, but I know that, it's like you were saying, I didn't walk away or end this scene feeling like it was uncomfortable like it was in the Hai and Romeo situation, but it really stuck out to me that Emily said, is there anything I can apologize for in particular that would make you feel better? And to me, that read as an act of almost desperation of, I really don't know what to do. What can I possibly do? And I almost feel like to be at that point is concerning, to know that I'm just going to outright ask you, what can I do to make you feel better? It shows that she's not in a great spot, but she's owning it and she's doing the best she possibly can do given that, and, learning new information, like you said. So evolution. She's adapting.
The only thing that I sort of might want to throw out is, it's interesting how you took it. And I actually fully agree with you. I think obviously it was an act of desperation. But I also, in a weird way, I think it sort of points to Emily's sort of issue here. She's a little bit robotic. Because if you remember, also after that, Sabaya walked away and she goes, do you guys think that she wants to be alone? And, Brandon was like, yeah, I would bet on it. But it's interesting that even after she walked away, I think if no one stopped her, she would have followed her. And in a way, I think it shows that, she doesn't act on, she's a little robotic. She's not a people person per se. And that's fine because she has her strengths. But that's sort of what it called out to me, that she goes, look, what do I need to say to get you to forgive me? Because I don't even necessarily, I thought this was just gaming. I thought we were all just gaming. We're all just sort of robots here playing. And she kind of found out that's not what it is. There's emotion in this game.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I find it interesting. So I was, honestly, when I was watching this, it was reminding me, I take Monopoly pretty serious. I'm competitive, let me just say. And there was a point in time over Christmas where I was playing Monopoly with my boyfriend Ryan, my 2 cousins, and I was, ready to, play. I was bankrupt in these 10-year-olds, left, right, and center, right? And when I do things like this, and obviously, I kind of go in thinking that everyone is going to be cutthroat. Like, you want to win Monopoly, do you not? Like, what's going on? And then when I realize that that's not happening, I always try to pull it back, but I've already burned those bridges, right? And so part of me thinks that Emily went in thinking like, we're in the game to win $1 million. Like, are we not ready to like hit the beach running? Like, why are we? And when you have the realization, it's almost a little bit too late that not everyone is at the level that you're at yet. I'm very happy. I'm not happy that Hannah quit, but I am happy that Emily gets to stay in that sense, because I feel like she has this ability to do exactly what we saw in this episode, which is kind of make up for what was happening. Because, I'll like give away some property. I'll still win, but I'll like give away some property, and I'll like do all this stuff in my Monopoly game to kind of mend some things. And sometimes I'm able to mend those bridges. So I just feel like, you're going into Survivor, you're going in for $1 million. And I guess not everyone, maybe in Emily's perspective, like, why not go hard right away? Not saying that that's right, not saying that's wrong. It's just like, I kind of see where she's coming from in that sense. Yeah. So and I hope that we see more of this. Like, hot take, I'm kind of thinking that Emily might take it all. Ryan put this in my mind. My winner pick is Caleb, but Ryan put it in my mind that like Emily had a winner's quote episode 1. She said, I'm either going up first or I'm going to win the whole thing. And like, I feel like I could see her in this edit specifically, like climbing up through, like rising like a phoenix and like climbing up through the ashes and taking the whole thing. Maybe that's just me being optimistic, and I would love an Emily win, but I don't know.
I actually agree with you. Yeah, I see it.
I would like to see a world where Emily expresses her emotion not in these times of desperation, and builds some genuine connections under less dire circumstances, just to be able to see that she's doing it. I really like, as we can get into, the way that Caleb helps her out and helps her course correct a little bit. But yeah, we will see. But you know what else we got to see? Most importantly, that gave me chills: the intro, the opening credits. Tell me how both of you felt.
I cried.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I felt like it felt like old school. It really did.
Yeah. I was very fortunate enough to be at a RHAP live show. So I was in an auditorium with about 1,000, literally, figuratively 1,000 other people. And it was like being at the World Series or something. Like, it was like being at the Super Bowl. The emotion that was felt in that room when that came on. We had some friends of players or some cousins of players of season 45 there as well. So seeing their family members on the screen in that slow motion, like the crowd was going wild. And I feel like that's a memory that I'm going to have forever. Honestly, it was so emotional. It was so exciting, and getting something back that like we have been wanting, we as in like the Survivor fandom have been wanting for such a long time, just means the world. You know what I mean? So it was iconic. David, how did you like it?
Yeah, I had chills. It was, I had a few complaints after the fact, like maybe the tribe names would have been helpful, but I was so enjoying it in the moment that nothing really crossed my mind. It was just pure bliss. And some of the editing was a little bit shady towards Hannah too, which made me chuckle. But
did either of you see I wasn't really looking out for it, so I didn't see it, but any of those like hidden things that Jeff was talking about preseason? Phil, did you see that?
I did not. I'm just like you, Tegwyth. I was so in so much bliss that I was not keeping my eyes peeled for the secret hidden thing. And I was planning on asking you two. I was like, look, one of these two have to know. David?
There was a beware thing at the end. I don't know.
He said it was going to be for like the Survivor super fans, and I've rewatched it since, because I filmed it while I was in the audience. Check out my TikTok. And you can hear all the like screaming and stuff. And I was watching it. And I'm like, what am I supposed to be looking out for? I don't know. I'm not good at scavenger hunts. I would not find it in Hidden Immunity Idol, and I am okay with that. I was like, was that clip from the first seasons? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking for.
It's a true like video-based I Spy. I mean,
It
and I
really
post
is.
every single week. And you know what? Look, we all could have cheated and gone to Twitter. I'm proud that none of us did that. We're all trying to find it ourselves.
Yes,
Because
we
I
are.
did not go to Twitter. I'm sure I could go on Twitter, but I did not. I want to find it myself. So, or I want to ask you to.
Well, this was a nice show. I'm gonna go watch that in slow-mo about 30
It's slow-mo,
times until
right?
I find it.
If anybody's
Backwards.
watching see it, like if you saw it, like you could give us a hint maybe where it
Yeah.
is.
Throw it in
Yeah,
the
that's
chat.
true. At least tell us like which part of the screen to look at, so I'm
Yeah,
not standing there
exactly,
for an
right?
hour. So the episode continues. We're at the Reba McEntire Memorial Tribe. I say memorial, she's alive. The Reba McEntire Tribe, not speaking that into existence. So sorry, Reba, and all of your fans. Again, Fancy was performed by Bobby Gentry first. I just want to, clarify that. Got some heat for that last time. Still love Reba. But anyway, Jay Maya, another singer, is trying to decode the tribe flag. And Austin, having the little swatch or the little scrap of paper, ends up decoding it using the paper. And it says, dig in fallen palm tree X. Is that what it says? Okay, so progress for Austin. Are we excited for him?
Go ahead, Tig.
I'm very excited for him. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Austin's mom has a Twitter. And she is I'm pretty sure she's a lifelong reality TV fan, including Survivor. And her Twitter is amazing. And so anything that she's excited for, I'm excited for. And so she's obviously excited for her son. So I'm excited for her son as well. But I'm really, I feel like it must be so hard to not have your vote, right? That must be incredibly stressful, even if you haven't been to tribal council, because you might, you know what I mean? So I am number one excited to see what actually it's hidden, if it's dig, because I know it said steps. So is it just 2 steps? And if it's 2 steps, then that's fine. But I hope we can see him get it.
Yeah, I'm stoked to see it play out. I think the only thing that I would change is I'm not necessarily excited to see him get it. I'm excited to see what happens. I for some reason, they hung on Jay Maya trying to decode that thing for so long. And in the next time on, and I'm sorry, David, please reel me back in if I'm jumping ahead too much. But in the next time on, we see Drew in a giant hole, still digging. It clearly looks like he is having some trouble. So I want to see a battle for an idol. I mean, it's been a little bit. So that would be my answer. Am I excited for Austin to get the idol that he's supposed to get? I mean, a little bit, sure. I am very excited for him to sort of run into some trouble. That's what I'm hoping for in a weird way.
That would be quite entertaining, so long as no one threatens to knock someone's leg off, a la Nyanka in Nicaragua, since we mentioned Nicaragua again. But as long as it's like a friendly-ish fight, then yeah, I think that would be quite entertaining. And then we go to Bello.
Before we go on to Bello, I do have a question about Jay Maya trying to decode the flag, and I would love both of your opinions on it. So when I was watching this and watching her work in theory with Drew, or in how I was seeing it in front of Drew, where she is like looking at these like symbols, saying like this has got to be something, and like working at that so blatantly, in my opinion. Do we think that this is a good move for Jay Maya? Because what I immediately thought was, what's her name when she was drawing in the sand?
Michaela.
When Michaela was drawing in the sand, and then all of a sudden was like, oh my God, she's smart. And, women with brains, scary. And then she got voted out, right? So I am almost worried that she was doing this in front of, other people, Drew, in front of the tribe so blatantly. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic sort of possible speed bump to bring up. I really didn't think about that too much. In a way, I thought that it might bond Drew and Jay Maya. But to your point, I think there's probably a more likely chance than that what you're sort of saying will happen, because I don't know, minutes after that, Drew's talking about this big alliance of 4 that has nothing to do with Jay Maya. So I can see him going, once they find it out, hey, just so you know, Jay Maya was on this path. Jay Maya was looking at it. Jay Maya was solving it, pretty much throwing all sorts of heat her way. So I absolutely can see that happening, Tegwyth. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it really depends on how long she was there for. I think everybody on the tribe, on every tribe that has these weird symbols, are probably going. There's probably been conversation about it. There's probably been everybody, given their try, like looking at it for a few seconds. So unless she's doing it for an extraordinarily long amount of time, I can't imagine it's going to be seen as anything super crazy because it's in front of everybody. Everyone's seen it. It's not like a clue that only she has. I'm sure everyone has probably tried deciphering it to some extent.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that I will say is on every tribe, it seems like it's a little different, right? Because the first step on Reba was, hey, go to the tribe flag and try to find it. But on Lulu, it was, here's a map, take the whole, try to fit it on the map, and that's how you find it. So I do think that there's a chance that it, and you're right, David. Absolutely, it could be just a tiny thing, and we're overthinking it. But I could actually see it sort of flaming up even more when merge comes, because all they're hearing is the headline. They don't even have the personal sort of experience to contextualize it. If all they hear is, hey, J. Maya's wicked smart. She almost deciphered the first step of the idol before the person who got it. I mean, come on, that's terrifying. But at the same time, they're not able to contextualize, oh, she was just looking at it, But I think it's still a great question to ask. What do you think, Tegwyth?
Yeah.
Well, I would just love to see how it plays out. And I think maybe I'm a little too, I remember 44, Helen was saying, I didn't want to, look smart. And I feel like obviously, and then she figured out the puzzle right there. And then, after she was saying, I didn't want to do the puzzle, then she did the puzzle. But I'm always slightly worried when somebody just so, especially since it wasn't a part of a challenge or wasn't trying to figure out a puzzle. And there is always the argument and the case that the edit kind of blew it up a lot bigger than it actually is on the beach. Maybe no one even noticed. Maybe it was one of those things where it just kind of flew under the radar and it wasn't that big of a deal. But because we saw so much of it in the edit, it's some importance to us, So, there's always that. So I am just curious to see, because you're right, she's not in that alliance before. And, or from what we've seen. And so I am just curious to kind of see how that plays out, or if we even, think of this again. This could be me just overthinking things, which has never happened before and will never happen. But it was just one of those things, because I loved that moment also, that editing moment with all of the numbers and the symbols. It was so funny.
Yeah.
If we've got any Drag Race fans in the audience, there's a very similar editing to Vanessa Vanjie Mateo when she's trying to do math in her head, sitting there before a challenge, and it's very similar. Except I have a feeling that J. Maya probably knew what she was doing and had some strong logic to it. Whereas, love you, Vanjie, but not sure there was a lot of strong thought behind that. But as much as we love the strategy and the thought of it all and what we could think of is going to happen to J. Maya, as we all sort of agreed upon before, we care about the big interesting characters. And I'm sorry, but Uncle Crazy Bruce is 100% stealing the show for me right now. So let's go to Bello.
Bruce, man, he is so funny. The fact that they were oh, he's name dropping, and then he name drops Kane is so funny. Katora also tweeted where she was in my defense, it was mainly Wendell, the winners. I forget who the other people she said was. So she did say that, but the editing was so funny, first of all. And then second of all, I just love seeing him have a good time out there, and it makes me sad that we didn't get this on 44, but I'm happy that we get it now. Do you know what I mean?
Imagine Tika with Bruce, Jam Jam, and Carolyn all on one tribe. Are you kidding me?
So good.
It would have been madness. And I was going to say, Bruce is freaking hilarious. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I don't remember the last time that I audibly laughed that loud at a Survivor episode than when Bruce, just every face he makes. I'm this guy is a nut, and I'm obsessed with it. He is just so fun, so expressive. And when he said the Kane thing, I literally was dying laughing. And obviously, you got it, Tegwyth. It is obviously Survivor editors sort of putting it on a little bit more, but kudos to the editors there. That was hilarious. I was literally dying laughing when they're talking about, oh, he's name dropping and he brings up Kane. I'm floored. I'm
How
floored.
dare you besmirch the name of the legendary Kane?
The legendary Kane. Lord Jesus. I mean, look, in all respect to Kane, just hilarious. Hilarious.
A great moment. And again, another thing, and I am like a broken record. Another thing that I think we probably wouldn't see as much if it were a 60-minute episode. I'm saying this so much so that if Survivor production or Jeff Probst is watching this, because obviously he is, because what better things does he have to do on a Saturday night than watch his podcast? He knows how much we love and appreciate the 90 minutes. So I'm going to keep saying it.
Thank you so much, Survivor gods, CBS gods, Jeff Probst himself, whoever made that decision. Yes, Lord, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Thank you.
Many thanks.
We love Bruce.
Yes,
we love Bruce. Yeah.
We sure do. We sure do. I'm not saying rig it for Bruce, but rig it for Bruce.
Can I say this? Do we all fully understand now why Jeff was adamant about, oh yeah, whenever Bruce wants to come back, just give me the call and you were coming back? I get it now. I fully get it.
Yeah, I fully get it. And I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times in person. And he is exactly like that in person. Like, he gave me the biggest hug. He is just so funny and just so charismatic and excited about Survivor and just life. And I'm just so happy that we get to, enjoy him on a season. If it's now, at some point, I'm very grateful that we get to see him, play this game and get to enjoy him on our TV. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Love Bruce. And so we go back to Lulu. Emily is looking for the idol. Everyone is back at camp talking about it, which I love that this keeps happening. We had it last episode with Rebo and Sifu was out looking for the idol and he was like, nobody knows. And they're all like, he's definitely looking for the idol. And he's like, I'm going to be like Tony. And everyone's like, he's playing erratically like Tony. And that was just hilarious. I wish they could have done that with Emily, but we do get a very juicy confrontation between Emily and Sabaya about her looking. And Sabaya essentially says like, all right, the guys are going to go look together and like, we can look together. And I love how blunt and direct Emily is. I know you're just trying to babysit me. I'd rather just look by myself. What did we make of this?
I think that was the smartest thing she could have done. I'm sorry. I kudos to Emily for that. And I think in a weird way, look, I'm far from an Emily, but I think that's something that I would do. I just feel like to a certain extent, you need to be upfront, especially, rather, let me amend what I'm saying here. When you were in Emily's position and she worded it exactly, she gets it. She says, look, I don't really have much to lose. So why would you not do that? Why would you not be upfront and say, look, you think that you're fooling me, but you're not. And I think that was just, I thought it was fantastic. Whether it bodes well or not, I don't know. But I honestly think that it was not the worst move it's far from the worst move that she's done this season already. And I loved it. What do you think, Tegwyth?
I totally agree. It's giving kind of like when, everyone knows it's like, not usually, but a lot of times in Survivor, it's like this unspoken thing that people are like, oh man, I know I'm on the bottom, but no one ever says it. And the fact that we all know, we're all aware of what's going on in this situation right now. So I might as well be upfront about it. It's almost like if you have an idol and then, you tell one person, that person tells one person, and everyone knows that you have an idol. Why even hide it anymore? Why not use it to your advantage? And I feel like, she's like, I don't want you to look with me. So if I have to say this thing so that you don't look with me, then I'm going to say it. And in theory, probably Sabai would stay with her, you know what I mean? But like, there's a world in which maybe she gets uncomfortable and leaves, you know what I mean? So why not throw things at the wall and see what sticks? And I'm just happy that, I don't know. I think I kind of like seeing this kind of gameplay because part of me is almost like if I were out there and with somebody like Emily, I feel like I'm always going to know where she stands. And I'm not saying that's always the case. It could be strategy, it could not be, but I feel like when she's somebody who says things like this, then I will feel like, you know what? If she keeps saying things like this, and I feel like I'm going to know where she stands, so why not have that person as my ally? Which I kind of feel like Caleb is doing in theory. And I think it's very interesting gameplay on Emily's part. And I think part of it is coming from, her trying to remedy the situation that she's was in, but I also feel like she's using it to her advantage because she's like, here's a situation I'm in, and I'm going to kind of figure out a way through so that I can keep on playing this game. So I don't know if you guys know this, but I love Emily.
Preaching to the
Well, yeah,
choir.
her cousin dropped by last week, and that was an awesome cameo. So yeah, we are Emily and Emily family fans around here. And to jump ahead a little bit, we see Brandon finding a beware advantage, but he doesn't want to open it, and Sabaya is all gung-ho, which I love. And my favorite part of this entire interaction is that once they start looking together, Sabaya's ahead and Brandon's lagging behind, and she's like, come on, buddy, like he's a lost child or something, like a mom worried that her child in the mall is going to get too far behind. She's like, come on, buddy. That made me cackle. That was my moment, actually, that made me cackle during this episode.
It was
my moment. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, please.
My moment is literally moments after that, David, where Brandon is like, she's like, okay, help me find this idol, and he's like, yeah, you can climb that tree and find your idol. Like, I'm not gonna climb that tree, it's not my idol. And I just thought that was the funniest thing. I don't know why I thought it was so funny, but I like audibly laughed and like snorted. I was laughing so hard.
As someone with scoliosis, I totally get Brandon's qualms with being on his back and doing the whole tabletop so someone could walk on it. So feel that.
Brandon is a riot, man. He's literally on all fours with Sabaya on his back. Don't do a dance up there. I have scoliosis. Hilarious. And to your point, David, yes, it happened 2 times. The first time, she turns around, she goes, hurry up, buddy. And then you see him jogging behind. And then they cut to another scene where you just see Sabaya and Brandon is so far in the back you can't even see him. And she goes, come on. And it's just funny. And it's the continuous joke of Brandon being just exhausted or just, flabbergasted. It's very funny. It's a very funny runner. And it's mostly funny because he's one of us. He is a super fan that wanted to go out there, and he did. And he's a little bit in over his head, maybe a lot of bit in over his head, and it's playing out wonderfully. And so whether he realizes it or not, to the question that started this whole podcast, he is cementing himself as a hilarious, funny character. He might not be remembered for what he wanted to be remembered for, but let me tell you, we are not going to soon forget Brandon. And please, don't give him so much flack. I feel like people were giving him so much flack for a bit, and it's just like, come on, y'all. He did not quit. I'll say this, and I don't think he would ever have quit the game. And I think that's at least for me, that's a very, very big deal. I love Brandon.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will not forget him. Who are we talking about again?
Was it? Yeah, I'm not sure.
What was his name? I can't remember. So moving on to Reba for a bit, we get a few moments that I don't want to touch on for too long because we got a lot left to talk about in these chonky episodes. Grateful again for the chonk, but chonky nevertheless. And so we get some moments with Dee's big toe, which again, something that we definitely would not have gotten if this was not the longer episodes. We then see Julie calling herself Mama J, and she wants to work with Dee. We see an alliance of 4 form on Reba of Julie, Drew, Austin, and Dee, and we get some foreshadowing maybe about things related to Drew wanting to be like the puppet master, but him like wanting to lurk in the shadows for now and sow his seeds of the relationships. But I don't want to touch on that for too long because we have so much to talk about. So unless either of you feel very, very strongly about Dee's big toe, then I think we can continue. Incredible.
It was
amazing.
So
we're back on Lulu, and Caleb and Emily have a really interesting conversation. I sort of touched on it before, but I really want to delve into it a little bit more. Caleb says everyone needs an ally, which is completely true. Even if you're at the bottom, everyone wants an ally. And I believe it's Emily who also says a quote that I really liked. You can't brute force life, and you can't brute force this game. And Emily gets a little bit emotional when we see a side of her that we haven't seen before. So what did both of you make of this?
Now, while I don't know who is going to sort of win out here, I think that we have just witnessed maybe the most valuable pairing of this whole season. I do not think that this was something that Caleb is fawning and he's going to forget about in a couple weeks. I actually think, in a weird way, Emily has leaped over Sean and Sabaya. as Caleb's number one, and it's because he has the edge there. That is the one sort of person that he has that no one else really has. And so I think this is going to be a very important pairing.
I totally agree. And I saw a tweet that really I thought was very astute. And somebody said in a normal, I'm going back to it, in a normal 60-minute episode, I feel like this edit maybe would have been, Brandon is weaker than Emily, so we need to get rid of Brandon. And we wouldn't have delved as much into this relationship with Caleb and Emily. And I think that this is something that we were missing and say, like when 41, when Erica and Heather we found out were like very bonded, I went, what? When did that happen? You know what I mean? Now, granted, they never lost, so we didn't have a lot of time.
And who's Heather?
Oh, don't do that. Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where I feel like this is a relationship that I think you're completely right, Phil. I think this is something that has some ground of importance. And I just also want to say, I think this is superb social game, Survivor social game from both people. Caleb obviously saw somebody who was alone and, didn't have any allies. And that's like, you know what, I can ally with that person. I think it's a very astute observation, but also somebody said this on, I think the Rob Has a Podcast live thing. He put his ego aside because she brought up his name in tribal council. It's not always easy, from what I hear, to put that aside when you hear your name at tribal council from somebody's mouth, to be like, okay, I guess I'm going to work with you again. But that I think is shows a very good Survivor player when they know that, what happens at one tribal council does not necessarily mean, especially in these faster seasons, does not necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen at every single one. But I also think it's really great gameplay and social gameplay from Emily, because he says, hey, I have some lessons for you. I have some observations, perception is reality. Here's how you are perceived. And she went, okay, sounds great. I'm going to fix it. Not everyone has that kind of open-mindedness when somebody comes to them with like, here are some things that you need to fix. And I think that is also a very good shows very good social gameplay, in my opinion. And I think that right there is a very interesting combination that I really hope we see go far into the merge, because I think it's a very interesting duo. I think we would see some very interesting gameplay from these two because they are so different. And I'm just totally here for it. David, what's your... Sorry.
No. Please go ahead, David.
No, I completely agree. Please, Phil, go ahead.
I was just going to say, going back to like the Ghost Island of it all, right? What made Dom Wendell sorry, David, I apologize.
I know, I said go ahead, and little did I know you were going to just flood it with Ghost Island. That was a mistake. God.
So what made Dom and Wendell such a valuable duo is that I really think that they each picked up where the other one lacked. I think that Wendell was way more of a gracious, kind, loving personality around camp. In Dom, not necessarily. He was a little bit more brute. That said, I think Dom was, and some people debate this, I think Dom was the bigger game player of that duo. I think that he was the one that was really calling for the moves, making them, and I think they both just really, it helped both of them elevate both of their games. And I think that's what we're seeing here. Caleb is the socially strong individual. Emily is a very headstrong individual, and I think that they were both going to complement one another and make each other better players. What do you think, David?
Well, as much as I hate that season, that was a wonderful comparison, and your analysis was so spot on, and I've never didn't look at it that way before, so thank you for contributing. I guess I can't complain about it that much.
He said
but,
that.
But no, you're 100% right, Phil, and I completely agree. I think their personalities balance each other out super well. I know everyone usually goes for like the JT Steven comparison, but I especially think it was highlighted with Dom and Wendell, and I think this has the potential to be an alliance that emulates that if they're able to get far enough together and, maybe make it to the finale. Who knows? So things continue. A boat arrives at every camp, and it says that one person must get on this boat. You'll return to camp this afternoon. For Reba, ends up being Drew. Lulu ends up being Brandit. But most importantly, for Bello, it is Bruce. And we get a confessional that a certain someone calls Bruce her nemesis. Would anyone like to pick up on this?
Sorry, just doing my Bruce robot here.
I am obsessed with this, like, one-sided, we don't hear anything from Bruce, but Katurah's like, this guy really grinds my gears. You know, like and I'm not saying that she's wrong. I have been in workplaces where it is a one-sided, where I go home and I'm like, oh my, or maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't have a confessional. They don't have a confessional, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, oh my God, like blah, 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 blah. And seeing it, I just think it's so funny. It's very great television. And I feel like it will play out so interestingly because you know that something's going to come of this. You know what I mean? Like I can just feel it like bubbling up.
Yeah. And, you know, to your sort of workplace comparison, I think there's nothing more sort of grinding than when someone who you find insufferable is loved by everyone else around them. It makes it 10 times worse because you're going, am I crazy here? How does no one else see this? This person's the worst. And everyone's like, oh, they're the best. You're so funny, whatever. So yes, I can only imagine that Katora is just having the worst of times, seeing everyone really just, you know, feed into Bruce. And to that same point, right? Bruce is probably amping it up even more because every single time that he does it, they're eating it up. So it really is this just, you know, recipe for disaster. And to your point, Tegwyth, I cannot wait to see it actually play out in the long term.
Yeah, this is going to be a great moment when it blows up. I can already feel it. And so these three guys make their way to this island, and similar to Jenna Maraska at the interaction she has with Dave in Survivor Amazon, where they're talking about their respective tribes at this little meet and greet, so to speak, Brandon spills all the beans about what is happening, and Bruce does reveal a little bit much, but he's being a little bit more cagey in comparison, and Drew is bothered by this. And we also get a wonderful moment where Brandon falls on the rocks and it was like, gosh, that sucks. Which, again, Brandon, gosh, you gave us so many great moments. We adore you here, Brandon. But what did you both think about this whole revealing too much, revealing too little? Do you want to make a good impression? Because personally, I would be of the opinion of I don't want to share a ton. I want to give them enough to think that I'm not trying to be, you know, super, super reserved about it. But I wouldn't want to tell them absolutely everything that was happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's it's a really fine line to walk because I think kind of both players did it too much on the ends, right? I feel like you have to come to the table with some information, but it doesn't have to be so pertinent to everything. You don't give everything away, but I feel like you have to be like, here's this little treat. Here you go. Enjoy it. But pretend it's like a full meal or something. And so I feel like maybe there could have been more. But the thing I found interesting about all of this is I don't remember anybody asking Drew what was going on at the Reba tribe. And that was something that I was kind of shocked at. We got a little bit of Bruce, a little bit of Brandon, but nothing from Drew. And I was kind of curious if that was even like, did somebody say, okay, Drew, your turn? Or did they just not even think about it? Or did the editors cut it out? It's one of those things. But I feel like this island really gives us a very interesting, very nuanced, not nuanced, but like focused social game because you're only there for a little bit. You have to figure out if you want to actually work with these people in a very short amount of time. If you don't, you have to pretend that you do. And I find, and this is the first time that I didn't roll my eyes when a boat came to the beach. And I was like excited to see where it was going. So, you know, that whole interaction was incredibly interesting to me, in my opinion.
I hate to be a little meta here, but I am so curious what happens in Drew's future of this game that every one of his confessionals are so matter of fact, so confident. He's been getting such a positive edit that I'm going, why? Like, what is going to happen in the future here? That's kind of the only thing that I'm going to, if I can be completely honest, that is really what I picked up on. I was like, why is every one of Drew's confessionals and sort of tidbits so matter of fact, so confident, and so like it doesn't get disproved by the end of an episode, you know? And so if I'm being honest, that's really mostly what I was thinking about in that sort of section. I was like, what is going to happen with Drew? Because apparently he knows it all, you know?
Yeah, and everything keeps going super well for him because what ends up happening is that they get a chance to then do challenge and potentially risk losing their vote, and Bruce doesn't do it, but Brandon does and Drew does, and Drew ends up getting it and winning a safety without power. So we just keep seeing more and more and more added to the bucket of all these great things happening to Drew. So I completely agree with you, Phil, and I didn't really pick up on that before, but it's just snowballing into all of this great stuff, which means either that snowball is going to continue to build and maybe Drew's just going to wreck the competition, or, you know, just like the wax that someone is trying to melt, it's going to get burned and maybe it'll just turn into a puddle. So I guess we'll see what happens with him, but very interesting. And again, poor Brandon. I'm sorry it didn't work out for you, buddy. He was so confident about that challenge. Tegwyth, did your heart just like sink when that happened?
Yeah, I was really upset. I was very upset because I feel like I see myself in Brandon, and I'm really like interested. I don't know. I was sad. And it was one of those things, and this is kind of, I'm just still so sad. I can't even like put together a good sentence, because it's one of those things where you don't have that much time. Like 3 minutes is not as long as you think it is. And he walked back and he looked at it and he saw his mistake. And that I teared up. I did. I'm not gonna lie.
And he lost his vote too.
Yeah, I was sad. I will say this is one of those things where, and I'm sorry if Brandon's cousin is watching, I apologize. This is one of those things where I'm thinking about like the woulda, coulda, shoulda moment. And we can maybe talk about this a little bit more when we get to the vote, but it's, if he didn't play or if he won and he kept his vote, and you know what, I'm actually going to pose this as a question that we can address later on, because I feel like we need to ponder this. If Brandon plays and wins, or if Brandon doesn't play and keeps his vote, I would love to hear your thoughts about what would have happened at Tribal Council, saying that Lulu goes back. Because in theory, they would, and say Sabaya still doesn't have a vote, right? So it's only 4 votes at Tribal Council. I would love to kind of talk a little bit about what we think would have happened. And we don't have to talk about it right now. We can think about it, ponder it. Maybe if anybody viewers out there can ponder it too, maybe put your ideas in the comments.
Wait, is Ponderosa called Ponderosa because you have to ponder on what things happened to you after you were eliminated? Am I just realizing this now? Oh my God. It's like in RuPaul's Drag Race where they say charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent at every episode. And that's really just something.
So
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
David's retiring.
I'm a robot and I'm malfunctioning right now. This is insane. Smoke is coming out of me. You just can't see it. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Gonna take a breather there for a moment, and we are going to hit you with an incredible piece of Survivor Todd Herzog Pop Shop goodness, and we will be right back after I'm done malfunctioning. Beep boop bop.
What's up, guys? I'm Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China, and I want to welcome you to Todd's Pop Shop. Here, me and my husband Jess, we custom make Funko Pops. We'll make literally anybody or anything you could imagine. But being that we're here listening to the Survivor Now podcast, I'm assuming you're all Survivor fans. So take a look at these. Some custom Funkos of your favorite Survivor winners, Sandra and Yule. Or how about Big Brother fans? Suri Goddess herself playing the game of Big Brother. You can also get her in Survivor form. Or maybe yourself with your favorite buff and a torch playing the game. But even better, get yourself with your favorite player like Nora here with Ozzy. And since you're listening to the Survivor Now podcast, if you mention this ad, you will get $10 off your first order and free shipping. All season long, Survivor 45 should be a good one. Mention this ad, $10 off and free shipping. I'll be watching too, still a diehard fan to this day. Hit me up on Instagram, Todd's Pop Shop, or toddspopshop@gmail.com, or on Facebook, and I will see you soon.
We are back with a bit of an echo for some reason. I'm not sure. Just kidding. We're back. No echo. And I think I'm still malfunctioning, honestly. I actually got a call from Jeff Probst during that little ad, and he told me I'm not supposed to be doing this anymore if I don't know what Ponderosa was.
You should be the water boy.
That's true. Jeff and I have so much in common, but Anyway, I'm back, recalibrated, new knowledge inside of me. I've reached enlightenment, whole ayahuasca, it was a great time. Anyway, so back to the episode. We are at Reba, the guys return from their trip. They all surprise Drew and run out to say hi. Drew shares that he has safety without power with the whole tribe. Good move, bad move. Good
Again?
move, Tegwyth.
I think it's a great move, mainly because it's safety without power. So I also think that's, it's one, I think it's a little bit more easily used on somebody else. It is another one where it's not like you have to play it before you cast a vote. So it's not like, it's not like it's not like a hidden immunity idol or something else. I feel like safety without power is something that is like the easiest one to share. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like on the level of things, that's the one I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead. It's not like an I don't know if
Tegwyth, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Bruce's cousin is in the chat. All hail Robot Bruce and his cousin. Incredible.
We love you, Bruce.
It doesn't get much better than this. We do love you, Bruce.
He
so
joined
much.
just now, just so that we would talk about how much we love him again. He already knows that we talked about it earlier, and he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna get him to do it again."
Well, at this point, yeah, screw the Reba tribe. Back to Bello. So, anyway, so we're at we are back at Bello, and we actually don't get a ton of Bruce in this scene, unfortunately. We're seeing a lot of Brando going to attempt to work with the women, and Brando also makes an alliance with Bruce, so we do get some Bruce goodness, but he wasn't in the epicenter of the scene, so to be honest, I was really sort of checked out. So while you two were watching, what did you pick up on? Because I wasn't as engaged without Bruce on my screen.
I liked the Brando Bando. I thought that was really cute and funny. I also find it very interesting where I thought the three women were very together. Like, I thought they were a little inseparable, but I think it's a very interesting move for Kelly specifically. Like, I honestly don't even think this is so much a Brando move as more of like a Kelly move, being open to other people. I've heard it on some other podcasts as well, where when you are in such a solid alliance, sometimes you kind of shut other people out. I'm not saying that everyone does it, but when you're in such a solid group, solid team, solid duo, you might not really feel the need to entertain other people. And I find it very interesting that even though Kelly feels like she's very solid with the three women, she's entertaining Brando, she's entertaining Jake and Bruce, and she's thinking about all of the options for her to get to the end. And that might not be with the three, and it might be, who knows, but at least we're seeing her think about all of the options. And I thought this was I did not think that Brando was going to be in the middle of the tribe, honestly. And so seeing him and Kelly kind of in the middle of everything is, I think, a very interesting way that that's where they are, you know what I mean?
Yeah, this tribe, hands down. Look, Lulu has its own thing going on, but this tribe has an extremely interesting dynamic, maybe the most interesting, because to your point, Tegwyth, it's like hard to really even call where anyone's going, and I think that there is a surface level, oh, we're all friends, but it's not quite where Reba is, where Reba, I believe it, Bello, it is all an illusion. And so it's, when the time comes, decisions are going to have to be made, and I think in a weird way, Kelly is in a really tough spot, because I think there is the Emily spot where, you are definitively at the bottom and you have to crawl yourself up and it's tough. But when you're at the top and everyone wants to be with you, you are going to ultimately be letting someone down eventually. And that is another really tough spot. And so it's hard to say which way I think that they're going to, sort of lean, but I do think this is a little bit gendered. There's a little bit of a gender bias here, but I actually don't think that Brando has as tough of a decision. Regardless of which way he goes, I don't think that he's going to be chastised for it. Kelly, I do. I think that whatever decision Kelly chooses is going to really affect her game. And I do think it's kind of messed up, but in its own right, it's certainly interesting.
I think it's a very good observation. And I didn't even think about it like that. And I think you're absolutely correct, Phil. I think that's, very correct.
Yeah.
Phil, you continue to educate me because I wasn't looking at it from this perspective. Again, I was just worried about whether or not Bruce was on my screen. But I agree. I think it's really interesting that we see this alliance of all of the women on Bello formed, and they're portrayed as like super enthusiastic, like we got to keep this together. But we also cannot fault Kelly for keeping her options open. A vote hasn't even taken place yet. So if the lines aren't super drawn in terms of the alliances on this tribe, so I really cannot fault Kelly at all for wanting to keep her options open. But I do agree that she will be judged and perhaps chastised for the decisions that she'll make as a result of that, because when you lock in, for example, so strongly with the women with such an important incentive behind it of like, we want to make sure that the women are in this game for the long haul, and then if she doesn't do that because it's not in her best interest in the long run, I do see that as potentially being a hard thing for her. If she does make it to the end and some of those other people are on the jury, I can understand why they would be a little bit bitter about it, because it's not just about the game, it's about their identities and wanting to represent for women, which again I can't speak to. But does that sound like a plausible notion? What do you think, Tegwyth?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing when you are Survivor is a microcosm of the real world, right? So when you go into Survivor, you have your prejudices, your biases, all of that stuff. And that also goes for when you play as a marginalized group, whether that's women, part of the LGBTQ plus community, person of color, whatever it is, you not only are going out there and playing for yourself, but you also have the responsibility, very unfairly, of also representing all of the people, right? And so, we saw it in Big Brother. All of these people, all of the Black contestants band together to and even if it was not for the betterment of their game, right? They knew they all couldn't win, but they did this together to kind of make a statement. And that's not fair to each individual person, right? You go into Big Brother, you go into Survivor to win $1 million. Like, that's why you do this. But it is the burden of people when you go in. And so that's why it's a little bit difficult, because, right, you don't want, when you're a woman and you're watching and you see women keep consistently being voted out first of their tribes, like it is really hard to watch. But then when you go out on Survivor, you are there for the $1 million, and you have to find your own path to get to the end. And sometimes the best way forward is by sticking with the women and actually doing something that, you're like, we know what, we did this together. But it's not it's hard because it's a burden, but it's not really your responsibility, but it kind of also is. So it's this one thing where you're going out on Survivor for yourself, but you're not actually playing for yourself. You're also playing for all of the people, and it's an unfair burden, but it's a very true burden that we have seen come into play over and over and over again in all of these reality TV shows. And it's one that, like, it's a fine line that you have to walk, right? And so it's kind of, it's almost like a lose-lose situation for Kelly, right? I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case, but like when you're in the middle like this, it's going to be, seen one way or the other if she goes one way or the other. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Sorry, that was my little rant of the day.
No, I'm really glad that you said that, and I'm really glad we're having these conversations, because I think it's incredibly important to factor in the meta and the fact that these are super fans and they're aware of the history of the show and they're aware of their contributions potentially to either the narrative of the new era or being the person who's going to break that. And like, that's a lot to consider when you are in dire situations and you're broken down and you're hungry and you're sleep deprived. Like, you're just trying to get through the next day. You're just trying to get through the next couple of hours maybe, and just, hopefully win some fishing gear at the community challenge so that you can eat a little bit more and get some protein. You're not always, worrying about the community that you represent and how you're going to show up for them. But I'm sure it is also weighing on their minds too. So regardless of their decisions, I respect and really admire the players for going at it. And I think it's so easy to go on social media and just say like, well, you know what, they should have just voted out this person because it's so wrong that they keep voting out these whoever it is, men, women, whatever. And this needs to change because the narrative needs to change and Survivor needs to change and gameplay needs to change. But like when you're in there, you are doing it for you. Unless it was just, you're just playing to try and change the narrative. I don't think a lot of people are doing that. I could be wrong. And maybe that's something that is changing with casting. Maybe they are more concerned with people who are playing for, I don't know, maybe they want people who are playing for like social causes, but it doesn't really seem like that. Let people play for themselves and like maybe stop being so harsh on to people on social media for worrying about themselves. It is an individualistic game at the end of the day. So,
and it's $1 million at the end of the day. Like that's a lot of money. That could change some lives. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, as we all collectively step down from this soapbox, any last comments?
I think we're getting to the challenge.
Yeah.
Let's get to this challenge. So, prize, fishing gear. Jeff also mentions brand new puzzle. Tegwyth, this was specifically for you because as you've been saying, it's the same thing in different fonts. And Jeff said, Tegwyth, I heard you. And we're just going to bold it this time. It's not going to be a different font, but that's the best I can do. We're going to feed you.
I like the puzzle though. The coral was really cool.
It was very cool.
But it looks like a tree. Like a coral is an underground tree. I mean, an underwater tree. Let's be real.
That's true. And actually, sorry, as someone with a biology degree, I have to say, I did just say that's true. But please know, I'm not endorsing that misinformation. Please don't revoke my degree. I do educate children for a living, so we're gonna about biology. So let's just Anyway, don't co-sign that at all.
It's not.
But no, it is actually. I lied. But typically, Phil, Tegwyth and I don't really spend too much time delving into the challenges themselves because we aren't necessarily the biggest fans of the challenges. However, if there's anything that stuck out to you that you want to talk about, please do. If not, we're just going to expedite this just a teens because
let's expedite, but not before talking about Kendra's fall on the balance beam. I gasped and I sat there and I said, "Oh my God, is she getting medically evacuated?" I flipped. I almost flipped out. That was one of the craziest falls I've seen on Survivor.
I'm getting chills thinking about it. Every single time I think about it, I literally get chills. I was also recording the entire challenge, and so I got the audience's reaction when we watched that. And when I say that was the loudest reaction of the night, and I am not exaggerating. People were very excited about the title sequence. We're very full the oh that was heard. It was the cringe that was heard around the world because it was so loud. And the fact that this girl got back up on the balance beam, I'm thinking about it. I could not. I'd be like, I'm sorry, I quit. I'm the second quit of the season. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Chris Doherty could never. He couldn't even do it, and he didn't even hit his tailbone. So, I think that if that says anything about winner equity, then hers just shot up tenfold, and she'll probably be able to, hopefully it's just a bruised tailbone. I have no idea. If anyone can find out how she's doing now, I'm very concerned because that gave me quite a visceral reaction. So
yeah, I literally need to get down from the chills that I'm currently having. I'm just oh.
Yeah, it really is visceral. I'm doing the same thing. Let's get past this challenge. What's next?
Well, luckily it was not in vain because Bello did win along with Reba. And unfortunately, Lulu was a lemon again, and they have to go to tribal. So we're back with Lulu, and Sean and Caleb and Sabaya finds the idol that says you need to burn the candle to find the idol. And how do we feel about this? Is this an interesting direction to take the idols of this new era?
I think it absolutely is, and this wax seal could not have been, sort of granted to a better tribe, because the fact that they still don't have fire and she cannot get to the idol is brilliant. It's brilliant. I want to know y'all's thoughts on this, and maybe David, please, once again, temper me here. Do we think that she could have put it in the fire at tribal or not? Like, what do we actually think there?
I heard a rumor that Jeff, and I don't listen to his podcast, so I could be wrong.
How dare you?
It's the official podcast, Tegwyth. Yeah.
That he said, or someone said, that she was not allowed to burn it at tribal council. Like, it had to be burned at the tribe camp. But, like, don't quote me on that, because I did not do my research on that. So, you know, I don't know. I didn't do my research, but I don't think, can anyone confirm? We have another cousin that came into my TikTok live. We have Brandon's cousin. So maybe someone over there can confirm or deny if they were if Sabaya could have burned it at tribal council. But I don't think that she was allowed to. Like, I think she had to do it at her tribe.
That makes sense.
It does make sense. And as much as I appreciate the fact that it's inventive, I am a little frustrated about the fact that, you know, it's showing more like production interference. Like, if you found an idol back in the day, you just got the idol. You didn't have to do all of these crazy shenanigans. Back in my day, when I watched Survivor, when I was younger, they didn't have people jumping through these hoops to get these idols. And if it were me and I like gnawed through the wax to be able to get to the idol, and production was like, no, we're taking it back, I'd be like, no, I don't, you're going to have to pry it out of my cold, dead hands. Like, I got this freaking idol. It's in my hands. It's an idol. Therefore, I will be using it. And I'm sure that there would be an issue, and they would have to like break the fourth wall and be like, David was evacuated from the game because he was, you know, tussling with one of the production members over his chewed wax idol. But I just feel like if you get the idol, I don't care. I wouldn't care about the rules. I would just break it and be like, this is mine. And I kind of find that aspect of it sort of stupid. I'm not going to lie.
In defense of it, I will say, though, I think it's very inventive that every single tribe, I'm assuming, because we haven't seen we haven't seen Lulu's yet. No, Bellows yet. No. I think it's pretty inventive of how they did it differently, right? So, like, I think it's funny because the production put that there prior to them knowing that they would not have had fire, right? So that was a very comedic moment that I thought was pretty natural and silly. But also, I like that it's different than just digging. I'm kind of sick of like all the digging. And so the fact that this is like different than just dig, but it's kind of the same thing because it's still buried under something, but you can just hold what it's buried under. I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was really funny. And I know that preseason, Jeff was like, the way that we're doing idols this season, we've wanted to do for a long time. And it's a multi-step process that might need you to work with somebody. And I think in theory, because he said specifically, like, have lookouts, right? And so if you're digging a big hole, right, you need to have a lookout, especially if it's near tribal council or near your camp, you would need to have a lookout. And then I also think if you're burning a wax thing in your tribe's camp, right? I'm assuming that's the only place where the fire is. You would need somebody to look out as well. So I personally kind of think it's a little bit interesting. And I like that they're adding something in that isn't just another advantage, right? Like, I would much prefer them mess with the hidden immunity idol than add another random advantage into the thing. But I kind of thought it was an interesting way to play with something that's already in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I'm just exposing my pre-HD preferences right now. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to make some great merch that says pre-HD, and then Phil and Tegwyth can perhaps wear one that says post-HD. Because
what about I'm in the middle?
Okay. I don't know. I'm just exposing myself as a curmudgeon, but we can brainstorm some ideas for the people who fall into the middle, Tegwyth.
Somebody in the comments on the TikTok live says the best idol was the paint trap one, though. Like, I like that paint trap. You remember the paint trap idol? What was that in? It
was Drea. That was 42.
42. Like, I kind of like when they mess with it in that way, where it's, you know, it's like, stop adding advantages in the game, but make it a little bit more interesting than just digging a hole to find the adventures that we already know about.
I'm sorry. I would watch Sandy Bergen from Token Cheens walk 87 paces back and forth forever. And that would be the best episode of any Survivor season ever. If it was just her on loop, just walking back and forth. I don't know what a pace is. I would watch that shit all day. I regret nothing.
No, but seriously, I do agree with you, Tegwyth. That the sort of like paint idol was hilarious, especially because we did not see it coming. And out of nowhere, it was like, oh my God, this woman has a bunch of paint on her hand. Like, she's screwed. Like,
Red-handed.
Caught red-handed, literally. I remember that was what I thought. I was like, she is done for. Like, what is she going to do? What is she going to do? But, it ended up being okay. But yes, this is definitely inventive. I was into it. I like the multi-step. And I'm also happy that, like, they're putting it in places where you can't really rustle. You can't rustle it. You can't go, all right, screw the steps. I'm just going to look. What are you going to do? There's no way that they would have found the thing up in the tree. And the other one is genuinely in the ground. I think that these are fantastic. I'm a big fan of these.
Did you say ruffle feathers?
Ruffle? You mean
feathers?
You're right.
I'm not sure which you were saying.
Hilarious.
And also something interesting that happens after this moment is that Emily gives Sabaya her shot in the dark. What do we make of that?
Phil, do you have any thoughts about it?
I mean, look, I hate to I'm almost always right in line with the Survivor superfan community, but I think they're giving a little bit too much credit here. Like, they're like, this was inventive, this was crazy. I mean, it was cool, but like, I don't think it was anything crazy. I mean, it was a great move. I think it was a great move.
I agree. I think it was a great move. I do find it interesting because obviously the shot in the dark is in itself obviously a shot in the dark, right? You have such a low percentage to actually come of anything, but I mean, it's still a chance. But it's such a low percentage that another thing, and I want to give credit where credit is due. I'm pretty sure Franny said this, or somebody said this in the podcast after the show when I was watching, that they were like, I like how they're using it as a currency rather than maybe what it's actually meant to do. So I kind of it's making a twist even more interesting because it's almost like if you let the players play without adding a lot of twists, they can make it interesting themselves because they're smart. If we cast well, that good things happen. And while it's not, the craziest thing we've ever seen, I do like the idea of the shot in the dark kind of being like a currency rather than it actually being a shot in the dark that you take. And I really like the move. I think it's a really great move. And I think it's one of those where, you are kind of mending the fences, showing something. And is it the biggest? It's not like handing over an idol, right? But she used what she had to kind of benefit her. And I am all here for it.
Tegwyth, hear me out here. Survivor currency, we'll call them fire tokens. And then we'll give it to everybody. They'll be able to trade them, whatever. We'll do like an extortion advantage. It'd be crazy.
Wow. Someone write that down. Write that down.
That sounds like something that's going to end up like on Ghost Island, honestly. But
yeah, I think it was fantastic. I think it was a really good move by Emily for sure.
Smart thinking, definitely. Is it 4D chess and something completely game changing forever and game breaking? Absolutely not. So I'm with both of you on this. Good move, but not what everyone is chalking it up to be. But we go to Tribal. Phil, walk us through the highlights of this Tribal for you.
This felt very old school. There was no, I feel like a kid in a candy store. I mean, look, there was a little bit of that. There was a water boy thing. But there was not an excessive amount of, analogies, comparisons, talking all around. You get to the end of Tribal Council and you go, I could have sat here and read a book. No one said anything. This was like, hey, why are you more valuable than her? And why should they vote her out? Hey, why are you more valuable than him? And why should they vote him out? I loved it. Everything was on the surface. It was between two people. Jeff saying that this is one of the few times in history where it's happened is like a bold-faced lie. I'm like, I don't know where he got that from. Has he missed the last 44 seasons? But I thought that it was like, it was awesome. It reminded me of old school Survivor. They were really going for each other, and they were doing it in a respectful manner. It wasn't gross. It didn't get gross and nasty. I don't like when it gets gross and nasty, but I do like warring sides. I do. I love this Tribal. I did.
Yeah, it was incredibly entertaining. Tegwyth?
I really loved it. I didn't love the end of it. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I would not have been happy with either Emily or Brandon leaving. But that's the problem with a really great cast is you're kind of sad a lot. But I loved the tribal. I thought it was a very weird anecdote from Jeff, but it's not like bad weird. I just thought it was kind of out of left field. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Left
cool.
field, Waterboy.
Waterboy, sports.
Sports.
So I thought it was really great. I didn't love, like I said, I didn't love the outcome, mainly because I really feel like having Brandon on our screen, I felt like it would have been really amazing. I think he would have been really great television, been really funny. He's so smart and so quick, which is always a great thing to have on Survivor. Like his post-game, like Twitter stuff is so funny, so good on the levels of Zach Wurtenberger, which is a huge compliment, in my opinion, because I love Zach. But I, sad to see him go, but loved the actual tribal council. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And with all of that, we do. Yeah, go for it, Phil.
Can I ask you, David, do we believe Jeff's story? I just want to get a quick poll here. Do we believe that he tried out for a basketball team and became the water boy, and that's how he discovered that everyone has their place? What do we think?
That is going to be a question I will answer after this quick ad.
Hi, Survivor Now podcast listeners. I am Katie from KT Designs, better known as Katie Tedesco Art on both Instagram and Etsy. I have been designing and selling Survivor products for over 7 years at my Etsy shop, including replicas like hidden immunity idols and Survivor trading cards with all of the players' stats on the back. I am so grateful for Survivor Now for giving me this shout out and helping me reach even more superfans. I love listening to their podcast. So if you are looking for some really unique reality TV products for yourself or to give a superfan in your life, come check out my Etsy shop at www.etsy.com/shop/KatieTedescoArt.com.
And we are back. And frankly, I'm going to be honest, Phil, I don't really know what to believe anymore when it comes to Jeff's stories. I don't know really what was happening in Kansas as a youth for Jeff. But sure, let's go with it. If it makes him happy and it's real to him enough to say on television, then sure, I believe it.
I'm inclined to say yes. Why not? Why
there we
not?
go. Jeff the Water Boy. We got it.
Mm-hmm. If they ever remake the movie, we know who will be cast as the lead.
Yep.
Danny
Me.
DeVito.
Like they're on the same wavelength.
Yeah. So Brandon, unfortunately, yes, departs, and we get some interesting information on the next on. Phil, you were alluding to it before. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, it seems like there is a little more complication with that Reba idol than we might have first thought. It's not going to be as simple as, oh, Austin told Drew and Austin and Drew team up and they make it look easy. It seems like they're getting caught looking, and it seems that the people catching them are not too happy about it. So I'm excited to see if this is sort of the first bump in the road for Drew, because in the next time on, it seems like it's Drew who's getting caught, and I'm excited to see it. I forget who said it so long ago. It very well might have been Rob Cesternino himself. I listen to him so much, but it was during Survivor 40. Tony finding the extortion advantage in saying the best thing to watch are good players in bad situations. And all that we've seen from Drew so far is him being this perfect player, and I want to see him get some heat. Let's see him get a little bit of attention on him, a little bit of negative attention, and see what he does. So I'm really excited to see what happens. What do you think, Tegwyth?
I totally agree. I also feel like Ian, someone who listens to this podcast and is also a huge Survivor fan, we were talking about what would happen if, say, for example, Jay Maya. I think we talked about this earlier, but if Jay Maya went and so sorry about the noise. Jay Maya went and deciphered the code without it, and Austin had lost his vote. But what if she found the idol? So, like, what if Drew finds the idol? Does Austin still not have a vote? The person wouldn't be that mean, right?
Wait,
right?
That's a really good question. Good on you, Tegwyth. I didn't even think of this. That's a really. Oh, that's right, Ian. Shout out to you, Ian.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. What do you think, David? I got them all on this.
Yeah, I have to as well. I'm not sure. I give props to Ian, and I would like to hear his opinion too, honestly. What did he think?
I mean, we kind of talked about it, and it was one of those things where we think production can be mean. We don't think production is like that mean. So we kind of came to the consensus that if somebody that didn't have the beware advantage found the idol, then it's kind of like the idol was found, so the votes go back. But there could be a world so if Drew found the idol and Austin didn't have a vote, Austin would get his vote back because the idol has been found. But then the problem is what if Austin doesn't know that Drew found the idol and he just randomly got his vote back? Like, there's a lot of what ifs happening, but it's just one of those things where this could in theory happen. And if it does, it's going to be good television. But yeah, right. But it's one of those things where I wonder if how they thought it out when they were doing this.
I think they're going to go for whatever makes the best television. You know, we always talk about the fact that, yes, this is more than just a game. It is a TV show. And I feel like what makes better television is going, sorry, bud, you didn't find the idol. You don't got to vote. And I would love to see that, because the truth is, if that alliance of 4 is as real as they say, those are the power players on that tribe. I don't want a boring tribal where I know, okay, these 4 are going to go off and they're going to vote for either Sifu or J-Maya. I want to see, hey, Austin has no vote. Hey, Drew looks like a liar. What's going to happen now? That's going to be entertaining. That's going to be the best TV. So I want to see that. Man, that's a great question. Good stuff, Ian.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Very spicy. A lot to look forward to next episode and beyond. But at the end of this episode, we are going to conclude by giving out some awards. So to fill in our listeners and Phil, we are going to give away some awards. And Phil, I'm mentioning this because, again, I'm going to put you on the hot seat and make you go first. I want you to give your social butterfly award to the individual you think played the best this episode. And let's hear it, Phil.
Okay. I can only pick one person.
Indeed.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to give it to Emily. I'm going to give it to Emily. She has entirely resolved her awful reputation. That was her own doing, but she undid it. And she undid it so quickly. It's only the second vote here, and it feels like she is honestly in a good spot. You talked about it, Tegwyth. She is also, I think she started this game in a very high risk, high reward sort of style where she was being very blunt, almost overly honest. But I think it's going to help her now because she has gotten past the first 2 tribals. Towards the end, people are going to say, hey, whatever she says she means. The second she decides to subvert that, she is going to be one of the most powerful players in this game because everyone has this reputation. Oh, whatever she says she means. So I think easily Emily is the social butterfly of the app. There we go.
Awesome. Tegwyth?
I was debating, and I was debating between Emily and Caleb, and just to be a contrarian, I'm going to say Caleb. Honestly, because it was one of the ones that was like a 50-50 for me. I think that what we saw was almost a masterclass in a really great social gameplay, and not just like be nice to somebody, but like put your maybe negative feelings aside to make your game better. I think they both did it brilliantly. I think that I really feel like they both deserve this award this week, which I've never felt before. This is the first time that I really was honestly torn between 2 people. And so just to be a contrarian and make sure Caleb's name is out there, I'm going to say Caleb, but I totally agree with everything you said, Phil. And yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree with both of you. And I was on the fence, but I am going to go with Caleb because Caleb was the initiator. And I don't necessarily know that if Emily approached him, I don't know if Emily would have approached him in the first place that same way. And I think that Caleb really opened the door for that interaction and that potential really strong alliance that could maybe end up running the game. Who knows? So I'm also going to give my yes social butterfly award to Caleb. And beep, beep. I don't know if you hear that. That is the social struggle bus. And Phil, I want you to tell me who is driving it for you this week.
Now, this is a name that we really haven't talked about much, but I definitely noticed, I think, and I hate to say it, but I'm going to say Sifu. And I feel like he's not really gelling as well as everyone else. And they had that one scene where he's like, when I punch things with this hand, it never hurts. And I feel like everyone's just like, all right, buddy, cool. And it's, they're accepting of him right now because they're not losing. The second that they lose, I think a lot of negative focus is going to be on Sifu, and I'm really, really worried for his standing in his own tribe. What do you think, Tegwyth?
Yeah, this is a really hard one this week because I honestly, and I don't think I've also ever been able to say this before, I honestly don't think that we saw a lot of bad social gameplay this week. I think that what we saw on the non-winning or the non-losing tribes was almost fluff, and good fluff, not bad fluff, good fluff. But it wasn't like, oh, this person made a misstep socially, this person did that. You know what I mean? We weren't really seeing that as much, in my opinion. So I'm actually shocked that you said Sifu, Phil, because I'm also saying Sifu. And I didn't think that anyone else was going to say Sifu, just honestly because we saw what we saw last week. And we didn't really see a lot of him this week. And what we did see wasn't really adding to his, future stock in the game. Not that this is stock watch. Also watch that. But not that this is stock watch. So that's why I could see an argument for either Jake or Bruce or Katora or Kendra. Just because we did see people who were in the middle, and I guess the other people didn't really think that they were really in the middle. So I could see, but I feel like it's so spread out on that tribe, I couldn't decide who it would actually be. So kind of by default, I'm going with Sifu.
Yep. I'm going to have to agree with both of you on that one, believe it or not. And it made me sad to say Sifu last week too, because I think that he's incredibly entertaining, but I ultimately think it comes down to knowing your audience. And Bruce can Bruce it up and make his funny faces and do his dances because it's getting a good reception. And I'm not saying you can't start and see what sticks on the wall, but if Sifu's not getting the reaction, maybe he needs to step out of himself for a moment and say, like, what's resonating with these people and what's not? Do they like it more when I'm open and vulnerable and I share personal details about myself? Or do they like it more when I'm silly, goofy, and, just being my, fun, bubbly, effervescent, rolling around and punching trees self? And it doesn't seem like the latter is really getting him a reaction. But that would also take a level of self-awareness that, as far as it's been shown in the context of this game, he hasn't really displayed a whole ton of. Not saying that he doesn't have it as a person. I'm not besmirching the good name of Sifu. But all of that said, I am going to agree and say that he is driving the social struggle bus this week. Wow.
Yeah, I think that this week it was a lot harder than I think it's ever been for the social struggle bus, in my opinion. It was, and I kind of feel like for me, like I said, I think Sifu is almost like a default, but not because of honestly anything that bad that we saw this week. It's just kind of like, I don't know, we saw a lot of really great social gameplay, in my opinion.
Right.
Also. So
yeah,
it's one of those things.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I think you're absolutely right. Like, even me saying, there was not a confessional after he said the punching the trees thing, where they're like, Sifu's out of it. Sifu sucks. It was just kind of, wasn't the reaction that we saw from D and her Big Toe, where everyone was laughing and everyone was talking about it. So you almost just have to think, if there was that, they would have shown it, right? And so it felt like a misstep, but you're right, Tegwyth. It does feel like, everyone kind of had a very good social game this week, for sure.
Yeah.
Good job, 45.
Yeah, bravo. Keep it going. And on that note, thank you for watching Survivor Social. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 2 of season 45. You can catch us at Survivor Socialites on Instagram, Survivor Now podcast, also on Instagram. Listen to us on Spotify. Listen to all of the other shows, part of the Survivor Now dynasty. And if you've got some questions that you want to ask us here on the pod, send it to survivorsocialpod@gmail.com or message us wherever the heck you would like to, as long as it gets to us. Even use a carrier pigeon if you would like, whatever works best for you. But again, thank you so much. So glad to have you listening. Thank you, Tegwyth. Thank you, Phil. And we will see you next week. Adios.
Bye.
doing the robot Bruce. Let's all do the robot.